Hey guys, it's Haunted House here. If I say Call of Duty multiplayer, you probably instantly think of skill-based matchmaking. Skill-based matchmaking, or SBMM for short, is a black cloud that has been hanging over this franchise for years now. With a new game on the horizon, I think it's time we talk about how SBMM holds the series back, how it doesn't really do what the devs say it does, and how the issue is actually more diabolical than people realize. Black Ops 6 might be chalked before it even comes out. Let's go ahead and dive in. So what exactly is skill-based matchmaking? SBMM is a algorithmic matchmaking setup, taking your movement, aim, kills, and many other metrics into consideration when putting you into a lobby. The goal is that you're in lobbies with players who are of similar skill levels to where you are. Developers utilize this so that they can try to have a balanced game experience at all levels for all players. Not too easy, but not too hard. Just challenging enough to have people invested in the game and trying their very best. The reality, though, is a little different. You see, SBMM is pretty easy to exploit and doesn't actually improve the enjoyment of the game overall for most players. Say you are somebody who is just trying to play the game and get better. You can't really improve because you can only get better than those people of a similar skill level to you. If you put in enough time, practice, and really think about your gameplay more than the average person in that bracket, you can move up a bit. Hell, you can see enough improvement that you even jump up to the next bracket of players. But when you do, they are going to be playing on a level that you have never had to play on consistently. This is like going from a minor league baseball team to the majors the very next game. It's just a different level of playing and a different caliber of player you're playing against. In most cases, if you do have enough skill to get out of your pool of players and move up to that next bracket, you are instantly crushed and put back down into the same pool of players you started in, if not below that, because of how poorly you did against these new hyper-vigilant players. This is the root of most modern competitive game matchmaking issues, but this isn't exactly the issue with Call of Duty, so let's talk about what's actually going on in this franchise. Call of Duty uses a blend of skill-based matchmaking and what is called engagement-optimized matchmaking, or EOMM. This is similar to SBMM, but much more nefarious. The goal is to use the metrics from SBMM to keep players in lobbies that are engaging, but with an added twist. Engagement-optimized matchmaking is not so much focused on the skilled aspect of keeping the lobbies engaging, but more so just the engagement itself. That is the main focus and the main goal. That is the priority above all. Instead of a balanced, challenging gaming experience, you oftentimes go through periods of having very easy games, followed by periods of having games that feel like they are impossible for you to win. The reality with EOMM is you are playing a game not for fun, enjoyment, or competitive challenge and improvement, but just because it is a digital drug that programs your brain to be craving just one more hit. I know that sounds counterintuitive though. Why would you put players through rough patches where they can't win, followed by patches where they're winning without really even trying? That doesn't seem like it would be very fun on paper. The big thing you have to know is that the people behind EOMM have science backing them. I'm sure some of you have heard about those experiments with rats where they have a button they can press to get a treat. Our logical brain tells us that the best way to have the rats engage with that button consistently is to give them a treat every time, so that every time they press that button, they get the treat. But the reality of the situation is a little different. With those experiments, they found that the rats engage with the button much more consistently if the treat is only dispensed every so often, maybe 1 out of every 20 times they press the button. This kind of setup encourages an almost fanatical behavior in the rats, where they are consistently focused on pressing that button, hooked on the idea of getting that next reward. It's the same type of mentality that keeps people hooked on gambling, and it's what these developers are banking on keeping you hooked on playing their game. The algorithm will force the outcome of the game outside of your control. The result is statistically calculated to be a foregone conclusion. You're just along for the ride. There's no room for growth, challenging yourself, or improving. There's only the hope that maybe this next game will be your dopamine hit that you're craving. So what does this have to do with Black Ops 6? Engagement optimized matchmaking seems to be cranked to 11 based on the experiences that a lot of people had in the beta, which could be problematic for the longevity of this game. We've already begun to see people get burnt out by the dopamine drip of EOMM, and I'm afraid that another year of this will just lead to more people tuning out and bailing on the franchise. Previously, video games were designed by passionate people who wanted them to be fun for the player, which would keep them coming back for more. Now we're at a point where games are designed by corporate suits who just want to make games that will perform in a way that benefits their shareholders. EOMM seeks to keep people playing and engaged, locked in and spending money in an endless dopamine drip, but in reality, it leads to burnout. The developers will sometimes turn off this matchmaking and claim that the numbers prove that players want this type of engagement optimized matchmaking because they are much more likely to keep playing while it's turned on comparative to when it's turned off. What they fail to take into consideration is that in the short term, people will always like or tend towards skill-based matchmaking or EOMM being turned on because they are used to that kind of experience. They have been trained for years now to expect freebie games after getting blown out. If they don't get their cookie after getting their ass clapped, they of course will be mad. That's what they've been trained to expect. Here's my take for what it's worth. Back when EOMM and skill-based matchmaking didn't exist or was far more limited, I had no issue staying engaged with video games. I didn't need to be handed cheap wins to stay motivated to play, and when I got beat by better players, I took that as an opportunity to grow. I would see somebody who was a higher prestige than I was, or who had a better loadout set up, and I would try to learn from them. As cringe as it is, I admit that I did reach out to some players and try to add them on Xbox Live so I could talk with them about how they learned to be good at the game. That's just what you did back in the day. Better players were something to be impressed by and something to learn from, not something to just bitch about and call them a cheater. That's the biggest issue I think today, is that when you lose, it can be written off, and when you win, it feels cheapened. If you got beat, the other player was a sweat who reverse boosted or two-boxed or cheated, etc. You have countless excuses for why you just had no chance to ever beat that guy. Oh, you won a game? You probably just got a lucky lobby and can't take true satisfaction in your skill and your win. You are constantly in this middle state of feeling hollow, where the wins and the highs don't feel that high, and the lows feel even worse because it's out of your hands. I would rather have a game that I can actually grow in, where I can put reps in and get better, than a lukewarm, drip-fed, psychologically manipulative gameplay loop to appease some corpo shareholder. If Call of Duty Black Ops 6 has to rely on these manipulative tactics to keep a player base, I don't think I want to stick around in the long run, and I don't feel like the rest of the community wants to stick around for this gameplay structure either. They're getting burnt out, and I think it's time that the developers reevaluate. So what do you think? Am I way off the mark on this, or do you agree with my assessment of everything? Give me your takes in the comments below. Let's start a discussion about where we want to see the game change in the future, if that is even possible at this point. While you're there, feel free to like and subscribe for more content, and if you have not already, check out my thoughts on the Black Ops 6 beta right here. Thanks for watching. Eat well, stay hydrated, take care of yourself and those around you. I'll see you next time, friends.